Welcome back, everyone. Again, my name is Rebecca Halsey. Today, I'm going to be exploring artificial intelligence and how it is really interacting with us in K-12 education. My presentation will be in two parts. First, it's going to be an overview of AI, specifically looking at a tool called Diffit AI that my district utilizes. And then I'm going to be looking at the definitions of adaptive and personalized learning. These are often concepts that are used interchangeably, but we're going to decipher how each one relates to itself and then how they could be correlating. So, first thing I want to look at is what is AI or artificial intelligence? According to the US Department of Education, AI in education is defined as automation based on associations. This basically means that it is a system that analyzes patterns in data and generates output to support teaching and learning. It also emphasizes that AI must remain as human in the loop products. This basically means that the teachers are still retaining the decision making about an ethical oversight in what is being taught in their classroom. Looking at example right now, I've got a teacher who is teaching the new nation in US history. We've utilized chat to help synthesize what the main parts are and help create lessons that are engaging and help really break down on their pacing. This is a new teacher and really needed some support in how to, okay, first 5 minutes is bell ringer, next 5 minutes is lecture overview, and then moving into the lesson. We are still the decision making. We're still telling it what is important and what are needing to be taught, but it gives us an output based on data and other activities that are out there in the web to really bring out the best in our lessons. Also, our readings in this course reinforce the idea that AI is a planning partner. It is not to be used on its own. We are still needing to look through and really make sure that what is being presented and utilized is in line with our learning objectives, but it is a co-teacher almost. It's there to help us brainstorm and help us think beyond what we may have had exposure to in the past. In short, educational AI is best understood as intelligence augmentation, not automation. When we look at AI's technical affordances, readings that were assigned in this lesson outlined several technological affordances that make AI unique in education. First is adaptability, automation, insight generation, and accessibility. For me, and what I do with my teachers, I really liked this insight generation portion of this, that it provides formative feedback and pattern analysis. It lets us see what, like, we can put a basic lesson that my teachers have written and it will give feedback on areas that may need more support, areas that may need more information, how to pace out these activities in a way that's best for that specific grade level. I like that it gives that feedback, especially when I'm working with new teachers, to help support them and let them see their ideas are not bad. They've got good foundations, but this is how they can improve. Ultimately, the instructional benefit within AI aligns closely with what the Department of Education's recommendations of efficiency, engagement, equity, and feedback. I really emphasize this idea of its efficiency. We have such limited time as educators to get everything done between making sure we're contacting our parents, getting all of the lessons created, grading, interacting with our kids, tutorials, after school activities, all of that. So it reduces some of that workload on especially my new teachers that are still wanting to make sure that they understand but haven't had the practice in creating these lessons. I also like that it gives differentiation. Our sub pops of our special education, our 504, our ELLs are so important. But oftentimes I've noticed that coming into the classroom, a lot of my teachers have not had time or experience working with how to differentiate a lesson. They have the content, they know the material, but how do they break it down for those students that aren't on grade level? And this is where I move into Diffit AI, having that ability to differentiate, change grade levels on types of reading, create sentence stems, create organizers that work for these students in these subpopulations is so useful. And AI gives a great outlet into helping our teachers create these activities. So for my AI demonstration, I'm going to specifically look at Diffit AI. Diffit AI is a tool that is used to take a topic, article, or standard and produce leveled readings, vocabulary lists, comprehension questions, and scaffolds across multiple grade levels and within different languages. It uses generative AI to reauthor text while maintaining the meaning of the material. It allows teachers to provide equitable instruction across all grade levels, across all learning levels, and across all languages for complex ideas. This relates directly back to our readings that we've discussed from the Department of Education and other entities that described AI as a planning partner. we are still having to feed this AI tool its information. We're still having to be a part of aligning the standards and all the other material, but it helps us build on what we know how to do and what we're good at, which is content, to help make sure that this is an equitable asset to all of our students. Specifically, when we are talking about this program, it's a tool that accelerates our preparation of materials without replacing our teachers. Teachers are still first and foremost front and center on creating the learning, but now we have a tool and a partner to help us build upon what we know. We also allow we also have this understanding that teachers need to be a part of making sure that bias and accuracy and alignment are first and foremost in any text that we give our students. So this tool, while it creates it for us, we can still go through and we can edit, adapt, change whatever we need to make sure that it is in alignment to our teaching standards. So now I'm going to go in and I'm going to walk through this program with you guys. One thing that I really want to stress is whenever you are using this program, please make sure you use Diffit for Teachers. I will link it in my post in case you want to explore it. If you do just straight Diffit AI, I ran into some paywall issues, but when I used Diffit for Teachers, it linked me to making sure that it stayed within standards and created educational materials, and I didn't have the paywall. So on this tab, you'll see right here, it says, what are you teaching? Previously, my teachers were teaching unit on the American Revolution, so I want to look at causes of the American Revolution. Now I can kind of differentiate. I can do English, Spanish, has lots of different avenues, Arabic, Armenian. I recently had a student move in from Vietnam, so I believe it does say this one. So I'm going to go back in here really quick. Yes, it does have Vietnamese. So it has a good wide variety of different languages that make this accessible for students. I can also then change the grade level. If I have a student who is one of my 504 or my special education students that needs adaptive texts that fit to the grade level that they will understand, I can then adjust this accordingly. They're still learning the same material. They're still learning the same topics, but it is differentiated for them on how it's presented and the wording and the vocabulary that's used to make sure they understand this concept. But for this specifically today, we're going to look at creating an 8th grade reading level. And then we need to align it to, we can do depth of knowledge, literacy skills. I'm going to specifically look at the social studies standards to make sure that what is being taught is in alignment to our Texas state standards. You'll see here that you can choose your state. I specifically am in Texas. Choose your grade level. I'm specifically going to be looking at 8th grade. And then here are all of my Texas state standards. I can match this to our TEAS resource system or TCMPC to make sure that I'm pulling the correct information. But ultimately, when you scroll through, you can even just search by topic. Okay, I know I need to teach the American Revolution. So here is every standard that mentions the American Revolution. I want to specifically look at the causes. So I'm going to select 8.4a, and then I'm going to select set standard. If there's multiple standards that you're needing to make sure are included in this topic, you can continue to add more standards to your reading material. For now, I'm just going to leave it with 8.4a. Now you can see up here, I can create literally anything, books, text, PDFs, YouTubes, and links, or vocabulary. I specifically want to just get a wide overarching idea, so we're going to just do literally anything. What can it give me? And I will say, depending on your internet connection, Diffit can take a little while to load everything, but it is creating a lot of material. So just give it time. Okay, and you can see here that it's now created the Road to Revolution, Understanding the Causes of the American Revolution. It will allow you to change your image, which right now it's showing an image of the Boston Tea Party, which I think is a really good one to show specifically for this one because it shows it's an engaging picture. It's going to draw my kids in. They're going to be like, oh, what's going on? I can even then add in an analysis portion of this. Like, what do you see in this picture? This could be the bell ringer. And how could we interpret what is going on in this photo? Then it will give me my text, which right now it is kept to a reading length of 1 to 2 paragraphs. If I want my students to have a little bit longer reading assignment, I want more detail, I want more information, I can change this according to the needs of my students. This is also good for if I have, GT kid that really is into this material and really into understanding history. I'm going to give them the long one. I'm going to give them more information to feed that knowledge and feed that, I always say, the little person inside their head that wants to know more and more, because I was that GT kid that had the little voice there saying, ooh, get all the information. But then I can also give the short text. It's still going to give the material that is needed, but is on a shorter reading level for my students that are not going to be able to read that long of a material and really analyze and decipher what's going on. So for now, I'm just going to look at the 1 to 2 paragraphs. And you'll see here, it's created this reading assignment, but then it also will move into a vocabulary assignment where I can get in. I can change this, of course, to align to my standards and what material is needing to actually be covered and any vocabulary terms that I feel are really important for my students to understand. I can even add in like what is cause and effect, what is interpret. I can add in those words that are going to be useful in them actually doing the assignments. Then it will move into some multiple choice questions. This is good for like exit tickets, some short answer questions, which recently Texas standards updated to now include short constructed response questions on our STAR test. So this is great to have this in here. I can adjust this to fit what is needed for our type of questioning, but it gives me some ideas to start off with. Then it will come into some think, pair, shares. I love these activities because they're so great for collaboration and getting our students to talk and really have good discussions and debates about what is going on in these texts. Do some cause and effect relationships, which is real great because this will give them a graphic organizer. This isn't good for our ELL students and our special education students and our 504 students because I could take this blank graphic organizer. I could add sentence stems into these blocks. I could add in some guiding questions or some guiding concepts to help them and build what they are needing. I can even then, for students who get short assignments, I can maybe give them the cause, but they have to interpret the effect for me. It's still shortening the lesson, but it's still letting them see both the cause and effect. And you can see here, you can add in more activities. There is a ton of different resources and different activities that you can add into your lesson. Once you have your packet developed the way you want, everything's been updated, you'll just hit export and it will give you different options. You can do a Google Doc, slide, forms. You can even just upload straight to Google Classroom. I usually like to just download my PDF so I have it and it's ready to go. I can print it off for students who don't have their Chromebooks that day or still have it in Google Classroom ready to go. It's a great different entity. I also like making sure I have a downloaded copy because let's say I have a student move in 2 days before I'm about to start this lesson and they do not read any English. I have this saved into my Diffit. I have my PDF version of my English section, but I can now go up here to the top to where it says English, and I can change that text to fit the needs of my students. So let's say I have my Vietnamese student that just recently moved in. I can change this here, and I can hit translate. And now I have that material in the language that they know. I can even give them an English and a Vietnamese versions to show, hey, this is what it is in your language, and here's how it's going to appear in the language you're now learning. But it gives that differentiated instruction that they need. Let's say also I have a student who, again, is coming in, only speaks Vietnamese, but when we test them to see where they are on their reading levels, they are on a 5th grade reading level, let's say. I can then go in and change this here to 5th grade, and I'll hit regenerate. And now you'll notice it shortens the material a little bit, still going to be having the same information, but it puts it on the reading level that is available to that student so that you can see it also in English. We'll hit translate. And here is now that Vietnamese text in English. You can see it has shortened the material to be on the reading level of that particular student. It still gives my summary. The vocabulary has not fully left us, but adjusted a little bit. You will notice here, it did not change this word back to English. So again, we are needing to make sure it's not automation. We need to make sure we are still checking to make sure everything is aligned. Now we have our multiple choice questions again. You'll notice they are not to the same level. They're not to that higher order of thinking because they are on a different reading level. We'll have short answers. You'll see it's still the same activities, but it is on a reading level that is appropriate for that student. I really like this tool because when I was in the classroom, especially as a first year teacher, this was something that just did not make sense to me. I did not know how to break this down for my students because I had a degree in history. I knew what this was. I was like, everybody should know this. But then I got in there and I was really looking at my students and I'm like, they don't know this. They've never seen this before. So having a tool like this would have been so helpful in making sure my students had accessible information. I'm not changing the content, not taking away their knowledge, but I'm making it in a way that is accessible to them. So for my AI demonstration, I'm going to specifically look at Diffit AI. Diffit AI is a tool that is used to take a topic, article, or standard and produce leveled readings, vocabulary lists, comprehension questions, and scaffolds across multiple grade levels and within different languages. It uses generative AI to reauthor text while maintaining the meaning of the material. It allows teachers to provide equitable instruction across all grade levels, across all learning levels, and across all languages for complex ideas. This relates directly back to our readings that we've discussed from the Department of Education and other entities that described AI as a planning partner. We are still having to feed this AI tool its information. We're still having to be a part of aligning the standards. The last topic I want to discuss is the idea of adaptive learning versus personalized learning. First off, I want to clarify what these two terms mean. Adaptive learning, based on our readings, is an algorithm-driven idea of learning. Basically, the idea that systems adjust content or pacing automatically based on students' performance. Personalized learning is teacher-driven. Instruction aligns with individual goals, interests, and readiness. Both of them share, though, one ultimate goal, that is student-centered growth. While adaptive uses algorithm and data within that concept, personalized learning uses teacher. Ultimately, at the heart of all this is the idea that our students are needing to grow as learners. And the ultimate goal is that we succeed in having them learn and grow as students and as thinkers and explorers in our classroom. When we look back at the program that I introduced, which was Diffit AI again, this demonstrates both in action: the adaptivity through automatic text releveling and personalization through teacher curation. The teachers are at the heart of this, though, but it uses data and an algorithm to create information based on what the teacher is inputting. When we take this idea and we look beyond just the idea of adaptive and personalized learning, the Department of Education, and when specifically I looked at Maine Department of Education Toolkit, which was linked in our reading assignments, it describes this new form of AI-enabled learning that extends beyond adaptivity and personalization in 4 points: generative exploration, predictive feedback, multilingual inclusion, and AI literacy and ethics. For me, within what I really do with my teachers, multilingual and AI literacy were the two that stood out the most. Specifically, multilingual inclusion, the idea that translation accessibility tool expands the equity. All of our students need to be able to learn, and all students can learn. Does not mean that we are always equipped with everything that we need to make sure those students are successful. So using this as a tool for translation to make sure that it is equal learning opportunities for all of our students is important. And also keeping this idea that teaching responsible ideas and using it as critical, or using when using AI, we need to teach our teachers to be responsible and critical in how they use AI, not just accepting it at face value and like, oh, it generated it, it's great. No, we really do need to make sure we're looking at it as an extension of us and still critiquing it to make sure it is in alignment of what we need. All of these developments make AI not just a planning tool, but a platform for creativity and inclusivity. We want our students ultimately to be successful. How we generate that is up to us, but we need to have every tool at our disposal to ensure that our students are successful. We are one person in this classroom, and having any kind of resource to make sure that we can adapt to the needs of our students is so important. So, in conclusion, ultimately, responsible AI use depends on policy and professional development. We, as instructional coaches or teachers, need to make sure that we're teaching our users on how to use this appropriately, creating professional developments that outline how could this be used. Let's practice it, and in developing actual digital citizenship expectations of not just our students, but of our teachers and how we use this in our classroom. When we were conducting the readings, one thing I really wanted to emphasize with my teachers is the AI readiness cycle. I plan the activity, we train, we implement, and evaluate and revise. This is not just how I'm going to introduce this as an instructional coach, but also how I'm going to need my teachers to use this when they're adapting. You plan your lesson, you train your students on how to use whatever tool that you're introducing, then you implement it, you evaluate, make sure it's working, and you revise it if it's not. This goes into everything, and thinking critically about not just this tool, but every tool that we introduce in our classroom is important. I really liked that Department of Education really insists that AI must remain inspectable, explainable, and overridable. That's why I liked Definite AI. It didn't just give me a straight PDF and say, oh, this is what you get. I can change it. I can adjust to the needs of my students, and I can think critically. Does this text actually explain this correctly, or is it going to develop misconceptions? We can also look at the idea that it adds that on. We can also look at the idea that ongoing teacher training is going to be essential for equity and data protection when we're looking at using AI. This is not just something that we're going to introduce to our teachers and say, oh, here you go, and just expect them to know how to do it. We're going to have to do check-ins with them, see how it's working. How do we need to change? Do we need to provide more trainings? Do we need to provide support so that they can be successful in using this? Together, though, AI adoption remains ethical, transparent, and teacher-led. This is what I'm really going to focus in on whenever I'm introducing this idea of using AI for our teachers. Our district has been a little bit lacking in how we're actually addressing the idea of digital citizenship for our teachers and our students. So emphasizing this idea that we're being transparent in how we're using it, we're making sure it's ethical and staying in alignment